welcome to our WHTT Masterclass in Public Speaking. I want to start by thanking Rita Justina Varga for creating and hosting this amazing platform and interface for a lot of us to engage. And this is a beautiful initiative in all times, and especially right now when all of us are working from home. So thank you, Rita, and thank you all of you for joining. And those of you watching later, thank you for joining in later. I am very excited to share this toolbox with all of you. And I'm thinking, who are we? Some of us out there are team leaders who are needing to connect with our teams. Some of us are entrepreneurs who are trying to reach others. And I know that a lot of us right now are in between jobs and need to network and need to meet new people out there. And so for all of us, these tools of how to do a public speaking session into something engaging is really useful. And when Rita asked me, can you do this? She selected the topic and said, can you do this for us? I thought, of course, this is my pleasure. And what is most urgent right now around public speaking? And I thought, what is most urgent right now is how to adjust our public speaking tools to do it on a virtual platform. And so I'm going to show you today's topics. And as you can see, I called it the right kind of loud for virtual audiences. And I'm going to tell you more about the right kind of loud very soon. So at the end of our session, you'll be able to answer these questions. What's different when we speak with our laptops? How do we prepare? What are the steps? What's the best order? And I'm going to also introduce something around the different layers and signals that are going on with our nonverbal communication signals, and also how to make the best of this screen presence, which is for many of us new, and for some of us, you're veterans, you've done it for a long time, so you're a little ahead. And the first thing I want to do is I want to tell you a little bit more about myself. So we all have practiced, I think, our elevator pitch. Mine is a one sentence. I help professionals increase their impact and influence. So usually when I engage with my clients, they are in a situation where they want to increase their leadership impact to enter executive presence, or they're preparing a presentation for a boardroom or for a conference, or maybe it's a job interview, or maybe it's a high-stake meeting where something is at stake. And I bring a big, solid toolbox with communication tools. I'm a voice coach. I work with people's voices, which is a big part of our impact. I know a lot about body language, listening, and of course, presentation mastery. And you can see on the slide here, I have a master's in organization development, and that helps me have that strategic overview. And I gathered my communication tools in what I call the right kind of loud. And that was for me a very good way of kind of pulling all the strings of the different tools that I've done together. I've had the pleasure of giving a TEDx talk that you can find if you YouTube me afterwards. And I'm an entrepreneur. And so I've had the pleasure and the challenges and the growth and the stretch of going from continent to continent and country to country. So I am also myself, as a communication trainer, trying to embody the tools that I'm using myself, because I've walked the talk. I have reached out and started from scratch in Copenhagen, Barcelona, San Francisco, Dubai, and now London, where I'm speaking from today. So that is my journey of stretches. And what is the right kind of loud? You might think it's a snappy expression, but what do I really mean? And the right kind of loud is finding that fine-tuned approach that reaches your audience in that moment. And it's important that it is the right kind of loud and not just do it this way or that way, because we as communicators and as presenters and as speakers, we need to be flexible. We need to adjust. Sometimes the right kind of loud might be to wait. Is it the right time for your message? Is silence the best? Sometimes we need to be loud. Sometimes we need to be flowery. Sometimes we need to be online. And even in the online world, there's different things we can do. So with the right kind of loud, I mean that special approach that really reaches. And when I was looking for covers to my book, with the right kind of loud, I had this title. I had somebody help me, and she sent me this images, and there was a boy who was screaming in the microphone. And I thought, no, that's not really the right kind of loud. And then I got some other input, and I realized that the best cover was this, where the megaphone was lying on the floor. And I can show you the cover, it's right here. You'll see it on some slides later, but you can see it's lying here on the floor, because the right kind of loud is knowing when to pick it up and how to get the right sound for your message. So there's another thing that's really good about the right kind of loud, and that is often in professional situations when we have meetings or calls or engagements, there can be tricky situations, and it's not so easy always to find the words to address it. And so the right kind of loud can be a conversation opener. When you've had a meeting or you've received a message or something is going on, and you can say to your colleague, you know, that wasn't really the right kind of loud for me. Or you can ask, was that the right kind of loud for you? So as I've been working with this toolbox now for the last years for the right kind of loud with that title, I've noticed that people are using it in that way. So I welcome you to also include it in your vocabulary if you find it useful. So, first thing, what is different when we speak from our laptops? So I'm a seasoned keynote speaker, and I've done lots and lots of things on stage for a very long time. And then now that I'm entering into the online world, along with the majority of the global workforce, there are some differences. So before we go into anything with preparations, I want us to look at what is different. And the first thing that I'm writing here that says it requires more preparation is really important. If I have a live talk, I can go into the room, I can adjust a little bit, I can see a little bit what's happening, I can play around with the time a little bit, I can adjust a lot in the moment. When we're doing something online, we need to be really prepared. And even if things happen that are unplanned, we really need that preparation time. So it's not a moment where you can just say, okay, I'm just going to turn up and see how it goes. And I'm going to help you with the preparation steps in a bit. And then I'm writing this information versus relation. And I think in all presentation situations, I always say that the relationship and the engagement is more important than the information. I'm going to get back to this again, but if there is a piece of information that you don't get around to, in today's information age, it's easy to send a PDF or to send an email or to jump on a call or to repair the information loss. And I think especially now in COVID times, we are on our screens so much of our days. There's so many messages. And I mean, I'm thinking that what I'm experiencing, a lot of people are experiencing. I'm getting videos, I'm getting humor memes, I'm getting work-related things, I'm getting proposals, I'm getting this and that, and there's so much landing. So when we do a presentation, I think it's really important to make sure that we balance and that we remember the relationship first. And then the next thing that is really different, and that is how it feels. It feels different. Right now, I'm speaking to the camera on my laptop. I'm not seeing all of you. I'm hoping that you're calling in from or logging on from everywhere, but I don't know. And so when I did my first webinar with a big group, I had around 80 people. And I had a session with them. I gave an hour-long presentation, and I received good feedback in the moment. And when I sat down afterwards, I had this complete anticlimax. I just felt depleted, empty. Oh, that wasn't nice. And then it took me a while to realize, I'm right now comparing with what it would feel like if I had 80 people in the room and I would stand there and I could feel the buzz and we could keep on talking. And then I thought, well, that is not possible right now. But what if I compared to, I could have sat here alone at home and I wouldn't have been able to engage at all. And then it landed. Wow, this is amazing. I can reach them. I can share my knowledge. I can engage with them, and I can keep on bubbling. And so I think it's important that we have the relevant reference when we do this, so that we don't keep feeling that something's wrong. Because that sentence of it should have been different, that can really kill the engagement for ourselves. And the next one is a word that came up in one of my webinars lately when I was exploring different communication topics, and we were all agreeing that screen fatigue is what's happening to us. So we have so many things in front of our screen. So how can we make sure that our talk is engaging? And my advice is to make sure, if you have an important presentation online or an important meeting, to try to schedule it so that the last hour or half hour you do something else. And there's a beautiful Japanese proverb called washing the gaze. And when you wash the gaze, that means that you're cleaning your mind, cleaning the impression so that you can look with fresh eyes and without judgment and really receive what's happening. So try to wash your gaze before you have an important presentation. And then I've noticed also myself as a webinar host that what I need when I've done this online engagement, I need to check in with somebody afterwards to hear how was it on the other end? How did this work? How did that work? Because I'm not receiving the stream of nonverbal communication signals that I usually would get if I was present. And I call this an audience ally. So before you are giving a presentation or a webinar or whatever format you're using, try to make sure that you talk to somebody before who's going to be there, who is your ally, and say, can we have a talk afterwards? Maybe an hour afterwards, maybe straight afterwards, maybe the next day. Because that follow-up and that check-in about how it landed, that's going to be even more important for you to know that it worked. So now we have a little sense of some of the things that change. And then we're going to go into the preparation process. And the preparation process is actually the same if it's live or it's online. There's a few tweaks. So there's 5 steps, and it's really important they come in the right order. So I'm going to go on now to the first step. And the first preparation step is to be really clear about your audience. It's the who. Who is going to be tuning in? So for example, today, I'm sitting here. This is live streamed. I don't really know who you are. However, I've had several conversations with Rita to talk about the community that she's created for women in hospitality and travel tech. So I know that part of it's that. Then I've invited some of the people that I know. And I've also tried to really frame what is the goal, the landing of this. And my intention with today's talk is that this is going to be useful for a lot of professionals out there who are in between needing to get engagement in the professional world. And so it's actually like this. The more we know about our audience, the easier it is for us to really engage. And I have a little checklist for us about this. So part of it is knowing the situation. Is it work-related? Is it a meeting? Is it an event? Or is it even a conference? I have to tell you, I have a colleague in Dubai, and she was on one of my webinars lately, and she shared with all of us how she has actually been on an online conference. And people had these drop-in images, drop-in times on cameras where they could talk for 3 minutes, and they had networking sessions and everything. So that's possible. And tomorrow I have the pleasure of speaking at an event where there's actually 5 women, and we're being interviewed by different people, and there's going to be breakout rooms, etc. So we can have even conferences and events online. And of course, it can be a meeting, and it can be a clear-on presentation. So think about a little bit the context. Where are people coming from? And then also, what is up for them? And of course, right now, we are in an unprecedented time with a lot of pressure. So it's extra important, but always important to think about, what is keeping people up at night? And with regards to your topic, what do they need? What would help them move forward? And what are their interests? And of course, is this something that they are choosing to log on to, or is something they're asked to do and they need to do? That also will affect how we prepare. And sometimes we have challenging audiences when you know that you're going to have some experts that know a lot and some who don't really know a lot. So again, the more you know about your audience beforehand, the easier it will be for you to adjust. So if you can explore, that is really good. And one way of doing that is to make sure that you know the organizer, or if it's inside your workplace, that you know who's invited, all of that. And sometimes, and especially now, I can imagine, maybe part of your presentation is a message that's tricky somehow, it's challenging or it's difficult. If you know that people are skeptical about something, either of you as a person or the topic that you're bringing. Try to start with that. Because if I'm a listener here and I'm tuning in to see your presentation and I'm skeptical about this or that, I'm not really going to listen for anything else until that is addressed. So if you can, try to make that in the beginning. That's a really good leadership tool for anyone who's doing presentations. And of course, is this the right content to talk about at this very time? Is it maybe later? Timing is very important. When it comes to duration and potential delays, there's a lot about knowing the tech tools. And good news for us is that we're living in a time right now where we have, I think, what you can call a global forgiving attitude. We all are now throwing ourselves into technologies, and some of us and most of us are not used to all of it. So my experience is that, my participants, when I've had tech issues or something hasn't gone right, people have been very forgiving, people have been very accepting. However, it's good to just think them through. And of course, also be aware of, this is the work from home time right now. Are they comfortable? What's the space like? What can I do as a presenter to make it comfortable for them? If you're going to have them call in breakout rooms or with camera and show up, make sure that they know this ahead of time. It is very uncomfortable if you're sitting in super homey wear and suddenly you're expected to call in. So all of this audience awareness, that's actually the first thing. And then next thing is, why are you giving the presentation? What kind of influence are you aiming for? And usually there's something at stake there, which is about trust. And so I have a long checklist with why. And I can tell you that when I teach presentation skills, I often start, okay, what's your objective? Why are you doing this? And very often I get the answer, well, I need to inform them. And then I say, if you only need to inform them, then it's better that you go home and you send a PDF, you write a book, you create a video, you do PDF, send an email, because we live in an information age. Information is everywhere. We live in an attention economy. Attention is the new currency. And I usually add, listening is fluid gold. So we need to make sure that we get through. And if information is everything we have at stake, no use to make a presentation. I'll help you with some other objectives, which usually is around in our mind somehow. So when you're doing a presentation, you want to increase your credibility. You might maybe want to explore how people are feeling. Now, when we're online, how to explore what's going on, that would require that we have a chat box where people can chat. Maybe it's by having an audience ally that you can check in with afterwards. And I had to adjust this slide for us today because I'm adjusting it to COVID times. And usually I write here, calm down after a storm. But I changed it today to calm down during a storm because we are going through a global storm right now with the virus. And so maybe your intention is that you're giving a presentation so that you can soothe them and give them some tools that they can use in the moment. Sometimes you want to make a decision. And a lot of us, I think, have also this intention of motivating, giving hope, giving good faith, giving a sense of connection, and of course, create relationships. And creating relationships is important in live presentations, and it's very important also in online presentations. So you can have different platforms. It depends on what you choose. If you're choosing a presentation like I'm doing now, I can only hope that you will give me some questions that I can answer. I can't really, there's no break-in things with Zoom, with breakout rooms where you can talk with cameras. However, if you have your presentation on Zoom or Go Meetings or some of these other platforms, you can have presentations where you also break out in small dialogues and people can talk together. So that can also be a tool. But even so, the fact right now that I'm sitting here and talking to you, and I'm going to say, look you in the eye or look you in the camera, that in itself is more connecting than just me talking without thinking of you. So it's that whole thing. And very often we want to entertain a little bit. So the best way for you to find your objective, to find your why when you're giving a presentation is if you imagine you're sitting there, and in this case at your table, probably in front of your screen, and then you ask yourself that question. When I've said my last word and there's silence, what is it that I wish to leave inside my listener or my viewer? What is it that I want to leave inside of them? What is that I wish them to have an impulse to do something, where I wish them to feel something, where I wish them to be curious about something? We always have that intention before, like, what is that? Well, that thing that you want to leave inside of them, that is your objective. And that's how you find it. So notice that the first thing that I do is I think about who am I presenting to and all the conditions around what's up for them. And then I go into the why. What would I like to leave behind in them? And then, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the what, the content. And I can tell you that of all the presentations that I've seen, and I've seen many, and I've coached and taught so many people how to do it, that the biggest problem that I see that is overall, and this is the same for online and presence, is that very often we have too much content for too little time. So watch that. And again, the information is there and it's a big key. And at the same time, the connection and the relationship is really important. So make sure that you don't have too much material, especially right now when people are so bogged down by information. And also, of course, if you're using slides, make sure that they're not too many. Just the whole volume can be really threatening to our understanding and to our engagement. And of course, try to find a way to speak with your tone of voice, with the vocabulary that matches who you're speaking to. And then, of course, make sure you have time to the 4 other steps, because there's 5 steps. And when somebody tells you, can you please make a presentation about the new budget right now? Usually we go into, what am I going to do? What am I going to talk about? And then we start researching a lot about the what. And the thing is, if we do that before we've done the who and the why, maybe that's going to change completely. Maybe that's going to change the whole content. So there's a reason for that. This is number 3. When we have this, we've done our research or not research, maybe we know about it and we have our content. The next step is the how. And notice that there is a big triangle here. And I usually do like this, like you can imagine that the presentation is here in the middle and it is resting on 2 corners, form and content. Form and content are like yin and yang here. They cannot be separated. They always belong together. If you have a message and you want to practice your message, you need to find a form and how are you going to do it? And of course, you can't practice different forms if you have nothing to say. I can tell you that in most business contexts, it's not really what you're saying, but it's how you say it that makes the impact. There's a beautiful quote by John Maldoni. He's one of the big Harvard Business Review writers. And he says, I'm going to see, I have it here. It's a quote. I use it as a quote in my book. Let me see. He has it here. He says, the words a leader speaks are important, of course, but how they're delivered can make all the difference, especially in tough times. So this is John Maldoni. And so the how, our session today is literally about the how. How do we create those presentations? It's really important to be mindful of the introduction, the way we start. The start is like the kickoff. And to make sure that we've thought about the listeners and that it tells people why they're there. Sometimes it's good to ask somebody else to introduce you, even if it's online. Today I introduced myself. However, I've been pre-introduced by flyers and invites all over before the presentation started. It's really important to know how to conclude. Of course, what is the takeaway? What am I leaving people with? And then transitions and duration. And I write here tech tools, right? Knowing how, and especially if you go into interaction. And so what I've added here, especially for the online for today, is this before, during, and after. because you can engage with the audience. And if, again, you have questions in streaming or in chat box, or you have breakout rooms where people talk together and you leave, you go out a little bit, you come back. And also you can have interaction after. So just think about how much audience interaction would I like? How would I like to line it up? What's possible? And then right now I'm using visual aids, but I'm sure you can see them in the camera. And sometimes having a three-dimensional prop can be nicer. It can create something else. So for example, I'm a global international trainer. And so here I have for you the globe. And for me to hold that and share that with you is something different than to say I'm international. So do you have a prop that's showing something or that's giving a taste that can give something to the situation? When we've done all of this, we've done the who, we've done the why, we've done the what, we've done the how. Now comes the final step, and this is super important. And this is the step that very often we don't get around to when we have presentations. And the audience and your listeners and your viewers, they will feel immediately if you took the time to do this. And that is the delivery, the fine-tuning of yourself. Now, a lot of us are nervous when we're going to speak. I mean, I know people who have panic attacks. I know myself when I started, I always thought I was going to faint. And so the nerves are there. I call them the butterflies. So the goals for a good presentation is not for you not to have butterflies. If you don't have butterflies, it's going to be flat. I usually say we want the butterflies to be there. That's our spark. And we need the butterflies to fly with us and not to block our sight. So the journey of the nerves goes upwards. It very often starts with the knees, then it gets into the stomach with the butterflies, then hyperventilation. For a lot of people, it attacks the voice and things happen. Well, and suddenly we get nervous here. And then worst case scenario, blackout. I can't remember. The frontal cortex gets blocked. So anything that grounds us and takes us down so that we can feel our sitting bone, we can feel, the earth under our feet, that is helping us. And so there's different tools to handle the nerves. Washing the gaze is one, deep breathing, good preparations, and more. And then also being aware of body language and of voice. And I will tell you a little bit more about body language signals 2 slides ahead. So, but of course, making sure that you feel comfortable really is the big thing. And then eye contact. Practice on the tool or the device that you're using so you know where the camera is. When I started doing videos myself on my phone to put them on social media, I had to practice a few times to see, am I looking at the camera or am I looking because the camera is slightly to the side? So that is super important. And I have a question. Once your nerves take over, is there a comeback? Absolutely. Absolutely. The beauty of doing a presentation online is that, first of all, you have your notes in front of you. Yeah. So, you don't need to have that blackout fear because absolutely we can all have our notes. We can have our notes in real time too. And if you notice that this whole thing is going on, I'm getting blocked. It depends on your audience. In a lot of contexts, you can actually say, I just need a moment. Bear with me. I'm going to figure this out. I had a webinar a couple of weeks ago where first I had forgotten that I could mute everybody. So while we did an introduction round, there was a lot of noise. And I asked them to mute themselves, but I forgot that I could do it. So there was a disturbance. And then I was assigning breakout room the time number 2. And the technicality thing had changed, so I couldn't figure it out. And I can tell you, I had 5 tsunamis inside. And at the same time, I knew that the people on the other side is not them. And so what I did was really deep breathing and just keeping aware of the others. I think there's two things we can do when we get in that very nervous state. One is to be aware of the others, because the fact that I was tuning in with them made it easier. When we get nervous, it becomes all about me. I'm not good enough. I don't look nice. I don't know the topic, and they're going to judge me. They're going to see that I don't control what I'm talking about. But actually, you're not there for yourself. When we present, we're there for them. We're there for the audience. So what helped me during that almost breakdown moment was to remember that I'm here for them. And while I was in that, excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, let me figure this out, they were very generous. They were saying, Kim, we're so appreciative of you hosting this webinar. Don't worry, we're just grateful. We don't need to do it. And so there is a very forgiving attitude right now. So be aware of them is one thing you can do. You can say, I need a moment. You can look at your notes. And also, you can also try to tune into what is it that you want to share with them? Why are you there? You're there because you care. You're there because of your topic. Because when we tune away from myself and into why am I there for them, then it's usually is calming. And I have a new question. Once you're caught up in the words, typically if you get what you were talking about in the first place, and you're talking too long, how do you stop yourself? It makes me laugh because I know the feeling. Sometimes it gets too wordy. There's a tool that is very good to use also during your presentations, and that is what I call the sacred pause. And the sacred pause is important because it helps us with not speeding up. It helps us with the nerves. It helps us to announce something very important. Like if I'm speaking right now and I'm in my word stream, and then I could say, that's the key to being there. So you can place your pause in there, and every time you do a pause, you also get that moment to have a deep breath. So again, I think there's always going to be a continuum here between how much you want to reveal to the others, depending on your audience. If you know your audience and it's a friendly atmosphere, you might even be able to say, I need a moment, or you can also do this, let me check in my notes that I'm not missing out on anything. And then you can look and take a breath and come back. And the secret is, if you do that calmly, it's actually a high status thing to do. It doesn't need to be something that throws you off. So I'm waiting for more questions. Thank you so much for asking them. I love that. So I'm going to continue. Camera practice. In one of my webinars a few weeks ago, there was a woman who said, I was not aware that there's so many people I know, especially women, who are literally petrified by being in front of a camera. And so they don't want to. And there was a person who wanted to join my webinar, but she didn't join because she would need to talk into the camera. And so get used to it. It is awkward. It is not relaxed. It is not fun. I've practiced now, and I just started posting myself videos on LinkedIn because I know that's what the community is craving right now. And so it's very important that we just get some practice and get used to it. Same with the voice. It's not the same thing to hear our voice recorded than it is to speak. And so when you practice videos, you're seeing yourself and your big nose and your weird teeth and everything, and you're hearing your voice in a different way. So just the more you do it, the more you get used to it. And then I have a special exercise called bathing in yourself, which is helping with all of this. And I'm just going to go through one more thing before I give you that. And I'm just watching if I have more questions. For now, you're silent. It's okay. So I want to share a little bit also about nonverbal communication, because that's a big part of what's going on when we're communicating. And one of the fathers of nonverbal communication, Dr. Paul Ekman, he's teaching in Berkeley. He's also called the best lie detector in the world. He's an expert in facial expressions. In the 60s, him and his team, they traveled out into the world to research, is it so that facial expressions and body language depends on where we grow up and what kind of culture we have around us? Or is it actually the same everywhere? During the research, they came to a tribe in Papua New Guinea that had never been exposed to other humans. And so they were able to actually conclude, yes, there is something here that's universal. We have 6 basic feelings and we have some facial expressions, and they are the same everywhere. Doesn't matter if you're born deaf or blind, or if you've never seen somebody else do it. If I run a race and I win, I will go, yay! The sign of victory is opening my arms and being high. Doesn't matter where you are. So when we are communicating, also virtually, a part of what is going on is universal. And then, of course, a part of it is personal. We have different personalities. So when we pick something up from somebody, some people are very extrovert and very embodied. Some people are more like in their head. Some people are more introvert. Nothing wrong or right, but that universal signal is going to be adapted to the personality. And then, of course, we have a context, we have a situation. We speak differently in different situations. So I speak differently now because I'm tuning into what I think, I hope, is a large audience. And when I talk to my friend or my family, or when I talk to somebody I don't know, so we all adjust. And then we have a cultural code. So for example, if I grew up in Norway, I'm from Norway. And so in the Nordic countries, you're not supposed to raise your voice. If you start screaming, you're either drunk or crazy. And so in that cultural code, you're very controlled. And then, of course, if you go to other countries, I moved when I was young to Berlin. And in Berlin, people were screaming a lot. And I thought for a long time that, what have I done wrong? Why is everybody angry with me? And then I realized, oh, this is the cultural code. In this context, it's okay to be speaking loud. And it doesn't mean people are angry with me. Especially when you have online meetings, this is really important. Because if you're engaging with someone who has a cultural code of not speaking up, for example, in the Asian culture, you're not supposed to speak up so they will not contribute very often unless you literally hand over the speaking stick to him or her. So the cultural code are also part of what's happening with the nonverbal communication. And then I've added, ladies and gentlemen, the virtual thing. And so screen fatigue is part of it. Being used to the camera is part of it. Maybe there's different codes around that too. So all this is in play when we are communicating in our presentations. And what I usually say about nonverbal communication is, it's the story I usually say when you walk into the room, but I will say now when the camera falls on your face. So the nonverbal communication is the story about how you're feeling. How are you feeling about yourself? How are you feeling about your topic? And how are you feeling about the people you're talking to? And so it's really important that we can be warm and generous and be engaging, because we need to engage in this time. We need to reach each other with the presentations. So I created an exercise that's called bathing in yourself. And bathing in yourself is literally being generous with myself first so that I can be generous with the others. And I created this for one of my clients many years ago in Barcelona, and he was working so hard and he was preparing and doing everything. And then he realized that I realized that he needs something that brings him on. And I just got a question, and I'm just going to check. Tips for a job interview. Yes, tell me something about you. I have only a big black board in my mind. Got it, job interview. I'm actually going to continue with the bathing in yourself exercise, and then I'll give some job interview tips, because this actually goes together. So before you do a job interview, definitely bathing in yourself is good. And the thought about this is, if I'm going to be, when I walk in there or I sit down, I need to change my vocabulary. When I sit down to do my presentation, I try to be as generous as I can with my viewers and my listeners. And I want to give them as much as I can. Well, before I do that, I need to give myself something, because in that moment, it's all about the audience or the other person that I'm reaching out to. So bathing in yourself is doing something that you love doing that makes you feel fantastic. It makes you feel fabulous, on top, beautiful, attractive, amazing, lovable, just for being you. Not for delivering or for achieving or being able to. It's like the human being and not the human doing. And so the only difference of doing bathing in yourself and doing things normally that you do when you are charging yourself up is that you just tell yourself, this is my bathing in myself moment. And so the more physical it is, the better. And as most of us are confined to our homes right now, I'm thinking a bathing in yourself moment could be take a bath, maybe take headphones on and listen to a beautiful piece of music. If you can, it can be going for a walk, but just with that right now, and just going for a walk to look at this beautiful view just for me. Sometimes it can just be journaling, writing in your diary. It can be reading fiction, if you like this. The most important thing about bathing in the self is that you do it for yourself. and you do it alone, because when you are then giving your presentation, you're sitting in front of the camera, or you're being interviewed, or whatever you're doing, you're going to be there yourself. And if you're doing it together with somebody else, you're risking that they might feel that they're not in a good mood, for example, and they're not going to be with you. And so you're not reinventing something, you're just doing something that you already like for about half an hour. The perfect way for this to work is to do this within the last 24 hours of your presentation. And it's almost like if you have a battery of well-being, you're charging your own battery of how to charge yourself up and feel good, so that before you start your presentation, you have your washing your gaze moment. You remember how fantastic you are, so that you can be generous. So that's the bathing in yourself exercise. There's many different ways of doing it. A few years ago, I had a client, and he was a young guy who had grown up in Dubai. So when I asked him, what do you do to recharge yourself, to feel fantastic? He said, oh, I go dune bashing. I take my four-wheeler out in the desert and I drive, and I just forget about the world and I feel fantastic. And I said, that's beautiful. And you might want to have a backup, because not always will you access the desert. So that's just a fun one. But I think right now in our home confinement, there's still things we can do for our well-being. And so back to the question here I had from Barbara. Some tips for a job interview. For me, it's a real drama when someone asks me to tell me something about you. So I think, again, here, for this, preparation is key. Because I can also get a little surprised sometimes by a question that I haven't thought of. So find one or two stories about yourself, or something you like to, that you know is going to make your own well-being flow. So either it can be, so in my case, if I would have a job interview and I would talk about me as a presentation speaker, maybe I would then prepare a story of a special training that I did, or a client that I had, or how I discovered to go on stage and manage that when I was very young. And I became a singer, and I had these huge audiences, and some of them were very nasty and some were fantastic, and then how I handled that. So prepare one or two stories, and it depends on the nature of the interview. Of course, it's the best stories are the ones that are related. And I know what really impresses is someone who also has self-awareness and a growth mindset, because we're not only employing a position and achievements and qualifications, we're also employing a team member, we're employing a personality. Even if we are working remotely, the ability to have buoyancy, to be able to bounce back, to have positivity, and to be self-motivated, and to think ahead, and to be supportive of each other. Those are qualities that are extra important right now when we are working remotely. And so if you're comfortable, you can find a story of a challenge that you went through at your previous job, or around yourself and your growth, and how you managed that, and how that made good results, or how somebody you helped, or a new skill that you acquired and how you acquired it. And again, talking about what I'm teaching you all today, starting with the who, know your audience. So the more you know about the person who's going to interview you, the more they know about the company, the more you know about some employees who work for them, the easier it is for you to find that story that's going to be useful or bridging or helpful. So if I have an interview, which I don't have because I'm an entrepreneur, but I have a lot of first calls with people who are interested in hiring me to do a webinar, or to do a training, or a session, or a book talk, or whatever it is. So I always try to find out as much as I can about them. And sometimes we can even go behind the lines and talk to somebody we know who knows them. So find out about your interviewer, find out about the company, and remember that in an interview, there's two ways. You are telling about yourself, and they are telling about themselves. And so I love it that when people ask, tell me about yourself, it's because they're curious. And so again, prepare and figure out a story. And I think the best stories, like the classical storytelling, the hero's journey, the Odyssey, the ones that really touch people, is always of starting a point and going into a challenge, and then somehow overcoming it and coming out. So if you have one or two of those that you're comfortable with, that's really what I recommend to you. I'm just going to check. Okay, good. So now, finally, for you to get ready, I have a screen checklist. When you are doing an online presentation, you want to go through this. Position light powder. This is for your computer. So make sure that you have some books under your computer so that you can see your face. I have a little one of those round lights that I have behind here. The lighting is super important. And Tom Ford himself wrote an article on LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago about how powder is really important so that we're not gleaming there, for ladies and gentlemen. Very important. Body language, speed, voice, eye contact. So the calmer we are, the better it is, because speeding up and speaking fast is actually a low status signal. It's something that we do when we're nervous. You never, if I speak really fast like that, it sounds like I'm really, really nervous. I'm not really reaching you at all. So you've never seen the CEO or the president come running in. So make sure that, you have those sacred pauses. Get comfortable with your voice. Have a sing-along or two before you start if you need that to just get floating. Don't let the presentation be the first time you use your voice during that day. And then practice the eye contact. Make sure that you look at them. It's important. Comfort, warmth, generosity. And this is why I gave you the bathing in yourself exercise, right? So make sure that something comes across that you are there for them. Because even if people are on the screens, they're there and they need you somehow. Be flexible, tech elastics. I've had so many tech issues, and it's going to happen for all of us. Be elastic when they come. And a very, very important tool when we do something online, let go of perfection. We cannot manage all this new learning so fast. We all need to let go of that. It needs to be perfect before we start. And I'm in practice mode myself, and I know that most of my clients are. So thank you for being on this journey with me right now. I have some follow-up steps for you. So what's next if you want to learn more about how you can engage online? So first of all, I have a book, The Right Kind of Loud. I've already shown you. So if you go to my website, you can fill in on by the book page, and you can download the first chapter about the voice and finding the true power of your voice. You can download that for free. You can buy it on Amazon. It's one of the things we can do right now. It's a short read. I host regular webinars when I explore different communication topics, and I call them The Right Kind of Loud in COVID times. And the next one that I have is May 1st. These are free sessions where I explore different topics and I have people engage. And because I'm fortunate to have worked around the world, I have the pleasure of hosting a totally global group. We always have 5, 6, even 7 countries, 3 continents, and some really high quality professionals are tuning in. So if you are in a situation right now when you're in between jobs, or just, I'm isolated, I need to meet some new people, the format that I have is that I do it in small breakout rooms so that you have dialogue and really have some interesting meetings. And so you're very welcome to join. The next one is going to be May 1st, and you can email me or send me a message on LinkedIn if you would like to. And right now, because I want to make a difference, I want to make an impact in this time, and I think all of us are trying to contribute the best way that we can in this massive time of change. So I've made a special package for COVID times. And so I'm offering 30-minute sessions for £50 until the end of May. And if you want one of these sessions or more, I will ask you for the first time, I will send you some questions in an email before, like a little survey. So I know a little bit about your pain points. And this can be if you're having a job interview, if you have a presentation, or if you want to learn more about how you can use the networking tools that are out there right now to engage online, anything like this. And because also it's important for me to be a part of what is happening and how to help, a portion of this is going to go to a nonprofit. I'm actually right now this week exploring which nonprofit, because I wanted to be connected with what I do. So you will both be doing something good for others and for yourself. So this is something you can do. And then most importantly, stay strong and happy speaking, and stay connected. It is the most important thing. It's called social distancing, but it's actually not social distancing. It's physical distancing, and it's social connection. I've never been in such a connecting time as now. And here you have me on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and my website. I hope that you will connect with me. And although it's different, there is a virtual community going on right now, and we are leaning in and we are supporting each other. And again, remember, don't compare to the wrong thing. Compare to what it can do, And I wish you all very, very right kind of loud and very, very engaging presentations. And I'm just going to watch now to see if there's any final questions. I don't think we have any final questions going on. So with that, take great care, wash your hands, and happy speaking.